what is variables in the JavaScript? So variables is a place where anything we can store, literally anything. It means even a function can also be stored inside a variable. So let's start with the basic one, how the variable will be created and what are the naming convention we should follow for that, what type of names are allowed, what symbols we can use inside the variables. So inside JavaScript, whenever we are creating any variable, so we need to follow the set of guidelines given by the JavaScript for the identifier creation. So what are those? So it must include only letters, digit, underscores, and the dollar sign. Only these four kind of things are allowed for the creation of a variable name. And it is also a case sensitive one. And of course, we can't use the reserved keywords here, which is something like a for loop or if else statement, or maybe the inbuilt keyword which is inside the JavaScript program. And it must also not begin with a digit. So let's try with a quick example here. So how generally we create a variable? Variable, let's say this is variable a equals to 10. So this is a variable declaration and this is the variable identifier that we are using. That's perfectly fine. So let's try a couple of variations with this. So if I console it and see the outcome, I should be able to see 10. That's perfect. But if I do it again in this way, what will happen? So we are declaring the same variable with two names, either it's allowed or not. You can just think on it for a minute. I'll pause here. Yes, so what will happen here? Let's see the output. There is no error we are getting in the JavaScript because as we have seen the JavaScript behavior, it will ignore all the error part and it will just execute whichever the good part of your program. And in this case, line number 4, it's looking something like a redeclaration of a variable A. But the JavaScript is not treating this as a redeclaration. The JavaScript is treating line number 4 in this way. So even though you're doing a redeclaration, it won't happen in background. It is just using the same variable which is available and declared on the line number 3. So this is how JavaScript works. There is also one more important thing here. Let's say we can declare multiple variables within the same line. So ID equals to 101. So these are the two variables that I'm creating, declaring on the same line. And if I apply the prettier, it's automatically coming on the next line. And of course, you can observe it's coming with a comma, not a semicolon. So this is declaring two variables on the same line here. Let me again make it in a single line. That's perfect. So it's a perfectly allowed syntax. There will be no problem with this. Let's also observe one more scenario. So I want to create a variable here called test. And inside this, I'll just write something here. That sounds cool. And now what I'll do, I'll redeclare the same variable again. So what will happen in this case if I console test variable on the screen? You can just pause the video and think on it. Yes. So let's see the outcome. We are getting it something. So even though we are performing a redeclaration, there is nothing hampering with your original value which is present on the line number 8. So with redeclaration, what we understood, it is it is taking the previous value itself. We are giving any updated value to it. It will only update. Otherwise, it will have its own previous value. In this case, we should get the updated value for the test variable. And if you are not giving any updated value while a redeclaration, it is just considering the previous one as we have seen in this case. Now let's move to the next one. And our variable is also very powerful to contain an object itself. So I'm creating an object here again. Let's say ID 101, the employee. The syntax might look a bit weird here. Previously, we have using the assignment operator to assign a value to a variable. But here in this particular object, inside an object, you might see we are assigning a value 101 to ID, then the name here to the employee name. The syntax is a bit different. That's a object related part that we are going to see in the upcoming modules. What you should more focus here, this is your literal, this is your value, that you're assigning it to your variable. So here the variable is also containing your object. Let's see one more new scenario here. The variable can also contain a function. Of course, we are not going to see the function in detail here. Just I want to show the power of the variable, how it can also hold a function. So let's say the function name I'm giving on add. So it can hold a function directly in this way. So I'm creating an anonymous function here. So what is this anonymous function and everything? We are have a detailed module on this later. So let's say this function accepts two parameter and it returns the addition. So the overall intention here is to show how your variable is also powerful enough to hold a function itself. And now if I want to call this function here by using our variable name, yes, we can do that. Let's try to do. We should get an output 4 in this case. Yes. Now let's see one more thing here, how we can use a dollar symbol for our variable declaration as an identifier. Generally, we should not create any variable which is starting with a dollar symbol, but you might be seeing this with many libraries. Of course, the more popular one with the jQuery. So we can also create a variable here in this way. So this dollar is your variable name. It's an identifier. So if I just console it, I should be able to see my name. Yes, we are getting it. Of course, I can make it double, price, and everything. It is simply like mentioning a variable name. That's perfect. Let's see one more here, the last one in this particular lecture. So we can also use an underscore at the beginning of a variable creation. So let's say I'm giving underscore uh, ID 101 and let's console it. We should get it 101 here. That's perfect here. So this is a variable name which includes three letters. The first one is underscore, then I and D. What is the specific meaning for this underscore here? There is no specific meaning in the JavaScript, but the professional developers, the JavaScript developers community follow some common guidelines to be much familiar with each other's code. So generally they use it to indicate the private members, the private properties of a class. So if you see somewhere any variable inside a class or maybe the property with underscore, so you can consider it as a private property. So that's a common convention followed by the JavaScript community developers. So this is how we have seen how the variables works and how powerful it is to hold a functions also, objects, normal string, integer, and even the complex objects as well. Let's understand the declaration with let keyword and what are its benefit. So in JavaScript already there is a declaration available with the var. So what's the requirement for the let keyword here that is introduced in the ES6 version 2015 version of the JavaScript. So this is the hierarchy for the JavaScript versions where we can see the let and the constant variable are introduced in the next generation JavaScript. So the next generation JavaScript starts from the ES6, that is ECMS script 2015. So of course, in the traditional way till the ES5, we were using the var for the declaration of variables, but there are issues like the hosting issue. After that, we can redeclare with the same name variable that are creating the problems, which is impacting the existing variables. So there are a lot of problems with the existing var declaration. So that's the reason there is a new way of declarations needed by using let and const, which will keep your declaration of a variable restricted to a block scope. So let's see with an example how it works. So we have a traditional way. For example, I'm declaring a variable with ID, the value 101. And let's quickly console it and confirm everything is working. Yes, everything is working. But if I create a block scope here. So this block can be a function, can be a class or any other functionality. Let's say this is a huge program where we are writing certain logic. So this block is handling a certain logic inside of a program. So let's say some logic here. And while writing this logic, I again need one more variable here of the name ID same, and I'm assigning some random value to it as per the new requirement, which is specific to this block logic. But at the end, what is happening here? If I just see my output now, the variable which is available globally, it is getting affected. So this block is specifically designed to handle some business logic. It should not impact the variables which are present outside. So these are the issues with the variable declaration when we do with the var. So to solve this problem, we need some solution which will keep our variable restricted to a particular block. So if I define a variable here like this, so what we'll do, let's say we'll do the let keyword only for the inside one. So in this case, what will happen? What is the block scope we are writing? What is the logic we are handling here? The variable declared here will be just present inside this block scope. It will not use any variable, either it's the same name also outside of its block. So it's creating a separate new variable, and this variable will get destroyed when the execution of the block is completed. So let's see with an example here, the same one. So we should get a value 101 in this case because the variable ID is separately declared inside this block scope and it is getting destroyed after the block scope execution. So let's see the outcome. Yes, super correct. And now let's also try to do a console on line number 8 for this ID. Make sure this is line number 8. So here we should get the 1002. Yes, from the line number we are getting this 1002. Okay, so now we'll do one thing. We'll create one more variable here. Let employee name here. And what we will do, we'll remove this console to avoid the unwanted confusion. And here I want to console the employee name variable which is present inside this block. Ideally, as we have seen, this variable is only available within a block scope inside this curly brackets, but I'm trying to use it outside. So let's see what happens. Yes, we are getting uncaught reference error. The employee name is not defined because we are trying to use it on line number 11 on the global scope. So it is not able to identify any variable which is present inside this global scope, and the variable which is present here, it doesn't matter because this is inside a specific block scope. So let's also try to create the block inside block. It could be a function inside function, a more bit critical problem to understand this block scope in more detail. So let's say if I again creating a variable ID here and here giving 10. So to make it simple, I'll just reduce the 0 here. I'm making it 103. Okay. And now here the log ID. Let me just remove the last one. So you can just think on it. What will be the output? You can just pause the video once. Yes. So in this case, let's come here. This is a global variable having the value 101. Super good. And we are coming on the line number 7. It is using a let declaration method style. So it is creating its own variable with the name ID. So it doesn't matter with the previous one and it doesn't have any linking with the previous one. So let's come back on the line number 8. It's again one more new variable, and the line number 10, we are starting one more scope of our code, a block scope in our code. So line number 11 is again creating a new variable because we are using a let style here for the declaration. So when we are doing a console on line number 14, so you can just try to figure out the nearest variable available with the name ID here. So which is the variable nearest available in this case? Very first thing, we should completely forgot this because it's a block scope which is already ended its execution. We are on line number 14, right? So what is the ID present here? This doesn't matter in our case. We can completely ignore it. So what's the next available in the scope where it is available? So we are available in this scope when we are doing a console for this ID on line number 14. So we are available with ID 102 here. So we should get an output 102. Okay, so let's do one more variation here. I'll just make it ID v2 here. So in this case, again, you try to figure out the nearest variable available with the name ID. So the nearest is here, but there is no ID variable present here. So it tries to go one level up. It tries to go here. So in this case, the ID will be used from the global scope and we will be getting 101. Let's save the file and see the outcome. Super good. So always whenever we are using any variable here, so it tries to figure out the nearest available variable for its execution. Hope you understood how the variable declaration works with the let keyword. Let's also try one more variation here when we try to combine var with the let. Let me comment out these functionalities. It will be helpful when you will download the code from these resources. So again, I'm creating a variable here called ID and giving some value 101. And here again, I'm creating let again ID 101. So the variable name we are using same, but the type of the declaration we are using it different. This is var and this is let. Very first thing, let's see, are we getting any error? Yes, of course, because the let keyword won't allow the duplicate declaration with the same variable name, which was a problem previously with the var as we have seen. So now here, we are not getting any compile time error because the JavaScript won't do the compilation. It will just perform the direct execution, and that's the reason we are able to see when we execute the code here. That's perfect. Let's create a scope here and define let ID equals to 101. This we know it will work perfectly. Let's try to create the same variable name with the let itself. Is it allowed here again? No. So what are the scope currently we are? In the current scope, we cannot create one more new one with the let style. So what is allowed in this case? If I create one more scope here and say ID equal to 103, it is allowed here. Why? Because let only restrict the same variable creation inside the current scope. When I'm saying here and I'm copy pasting with the same ID variable declaration here for the let, it won't allow because this is in the current scope. So now I can do that on line number 23 because we are not in the current scope. We are inside one more nested scope of the code block, we can say here. So this is how the let works, and it helps us to solve the problem which were coming previously with the var declaration. Let's understand the declaration with const keyword here. So previously JavaScript don't have any capability. So once any value is being assigned to a variable, we can't change it. So there is no way to restrict any assignment to existing variable. So that's what introduced with the ES6 version, which we call the next generation JavaScript in the ECMA script 2015, the let and the constant keyword. So both let and const keywords are the block scope level that we have seen in the previous one of the let declaration. And here with the const, in addition to that, it will only do one extra operation, that is, it won't allow a developer to reassign any value of a constant variable. Let's see with a quick example. So let's see here, I'm creating a variable const ID equal to 101. So let me also console it, and as always, let's confirm the program is working fine. Yes, it's working. And here, if I do ID equal to 102, so you might having a question like, as I said, it won't allow to reassign a value to a constant variable, but it's not giving any error here. And that's what the problem with the JavaScript. It won't have the compiler to do all this stuff. So in the production, in the runtime, it will fail and it will crash the program. So you can see on the line number 3, we are getting an error. Assignment to a constant variable is not allowed here. And the line number 4 is also not getting executed. So with this, we should also understand one more new thing. Whenever any error is encountered in the JavaScript, from that a line onwards, all the lines will be skipped and your program is crashing. And that's the reason the console, which is present on the line number 4, we are not able to see. The program is crashing on line number 3 itself. Perfect. Let's see with one more variation here. If I'm creating a constant with employee name here, and imagine I'm not giving or initializing this variable, so it's not allowed. You might be thinking we can do it later in this way, and program should allow us, but we are getting an error here because whenever we are declaring any constant variable, we should immediately assign its value. And if I do this with normal let or var, it's allowed because it allows for the different values to be given for the variable, but const only allows one-time initialization, and let it won't allow any additional values to be assigned. Let's also understand how the constant allow the block scope, and it works exactly similar to the let declaration style. So if I'm creating a variable here called const, let me just also comment the above one, const id equal to 101. Let's keep applying the print here to keep your code simple. Let's create a block scope, and again constant id equals to 102. So this is a perfectly allowed syntax because we are inside a scope. If I create one more same variable name here over here, it won't allow, as we have seen, the let and the constant keyword won't allow the duplicate identifier creation in its current scope. And right now we are not in the current scope, we are in the nested scope. And here, if I just console ID, so what will be printed? 102, because the nearest available ID variable is this one. Let's see the outcome. Yes. And let's say the name of this is v2 something kind of. So we are getting the 101 as the nearest one. Perfect. So let's also understand the constant variable when we assign an array and an object, or maybe the function for it, and how exactly it behaves in that case. So let's comment this code and create a constant array, we can say here. I'm creating a array which is holding an IDs here. So till this point, everything is fine. Let's console array. Let's confirm everything is good. Yes, we are also able to see the array. So as what we have seen the syntax, the constant won't allow to reassign any value to array. Whatever you are initializing first, the beyond that, it won't allow anything new. But if I do here array dot push, now again, don't worry about what exactly this push and everything. We have a dedicated module where we are going to understand the arrays and object in much more detail. Here you can just understand this push method is helping you to add the fourth element inside your array. So it's your time to think it will throw any error or it will work. Yes. So let's see the outcome. Yes, it's allowing. And why it's allowing? As the constant declaration says, you cannot change the value assigned to this variable. If you ideally see, we are not changing the value which is being assigned to it. We are changing the elements inside our value. So what it mean? Let me just comment this. If I do in this way, it's not allowed. Let's see. Yes, it's a constant variable. It means you cannot reassign a value, but whatever the value is being assigned inside that, whatever the changes you want to make, you can make it. So this is just creating a memory reference to the array variable that you cannot change. The same thing applies for the object as well. Let's try to do for the object as well. So a constant object, this object, let's consider we are having ID 101 and the name. Let's console it. Okay. So now if I say ob dot, I want to introduce a new property inside this object. Let's say is manager and equals to false. So this is the third property that I want to add inside my object. Now how to handle this object and everything, that's not a big concern here. That's not the topic to discuss. What we are more discussing, the object which is present here, we are modifying that object. Super correct. Let's see the outcome. So we should have an object here now in which three properties are available and the object is working very much fine. Now, what is not allowed due to this constant? I cannot directly assign a new object. I can change an existing object, but I cannot assign a new object to this ob variable here. So if I just say here id equals to 102, employee name. Okay, so this is not allowed that we are doing on line number 27 because we are reassigning a complete new different object. And let's see the error in this case, which is coming. Yes, we are getting again an error here because we cannot reassign a value to a constant variable. Okay, so one more variation here. If the last one, let me just console this. So if I'm creating a constant variable called a here of value 10, and if I do here let a equals to 10, is it allowed? No, because both let and constant are not allowing to create a same variable name inside the current scope. So hope you understood how the constant works in detail in the JavaScript.